Alright, it's Miss Wagner here. I'm going to show you guys the quadratic formula today. This is an equation that you're going to get real familiar with sometime here. The main thing you need to know from this equation is that we need to find A, B, and C. So I'm going to use this example down here to kind of explain what I mean. When you're given an equation like this, notice that it equals 0. You want to find the coefficients, like the numbers that are in the front of the x's. So this has an x squared. There's no number there. If there was, we would call it the a value. This number here in front of this x, I'm going to include that plus sign with it, would be b. And this last number at the end is the c. So a, b, and c. Your first step when you solve an equation like this is to just figure out what are A, B, and C. So I'm going to write out A, B, and C. A, B, and C. If you have 3 colors at home, it might be helpful to use them for this lesson today. A, in this situation here, is the number in front of the x squared. I said sometimes there's not a number. That's okay. It's an imaginary 1. So A in this situation will be 1. B is positive 13. And C is 30. That's our first step. Figure out what A, B, and C are. Not too bad. You guys can do that. The next thing you want to do after that is write the skeleton. This is what I'm calling the skeleton, okay? This big, huge equation right here. We'll post a video of a song if that will help you remember it. So the skeleton is x equals negative b plus and minus. I know that's kind of strange. It has a plus and a minus stacked on top of each other. It's okay. This is the square root symbol. B squared minus 4ac. That whole thing, notice my division bar goes all the way across, is all over 2a. Once you have that written down, we just need to plug in the letters and simplify it. So I still start with x equals. I write the negative sign, but instead of just writing b, I'm going to use my number up here for b, which was 13. So I can plug in 13 plus and minus the square root of b squared, b was 13, minus 4, that just stays there, minus 4 times a, I'm going to put it in parentheses, so this has ac, so a is 1, c is 30, a times c, all divided by 2 times a is 1. 2a. I plugged in 1 for a right down here. Alright, if you have any questions about how I plugged that in, please don't be afraid to ask. Once you do that, I'm going to keep simplifying kind of up here. So I still have x equals. Negative 13 just stays there. I'm going to leave the plus and minus. I'm also going to leave the square root. And I'm just going to take this whole thing in the middle. I'll highlight this part of it. I'm going to plug that into my calculator and simplify it. I know some of you are using phones, so it's a little technologically challenged these days. 13 to the power of 2. I did that power sign by using the caret button right here. 13 to the power of 2 minus 4 times 1 times 30. Okay, so that number is 49. It's going to go right here. If I was using my iPhone or some other form of technology, I can show you what that looks like. Here's the calculator app on my phone. If you turn it sideways, that'll give you like the, scientific view. So I could type in 13 squared. So 13, the squared button is right here, minus 4 times 1 times 30. Still gives you 49. Cool stuff. If you have an Android, sorry, I don't know how to help you. Just kidding, we can figure it out. Divided by 2 times 1 is 2. And then we're almost done. Once you get to this part, see how this has the plus and minus? Oh, actually, let's take it one step further. We'll do x equals negative 13, plus and minus. We still need to take the square root of 49. Back in my calculator, I can now just push this square root button right here, and it gives me 7. On this calculator, I can type in the square root of 49 is 7 all over 2. Now here we go. We're going to break this up into 2 parts. In the first part, I'll have x equals negative 13 plus 7 over 2. In the second part, I'll have x equals negative 13 minus 7 over 2. Negative 13 plus 7 is negative 6. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 13 minus 7 is negative 20. Divided by 2 is negative 10. Those two right there are your answers. You get 2 answers this time, okay? Almost every time you get 2 answers. Okay, I know it's a lot of math and a lot of steps, but it's stuff that you guys can handle. I know you can do this. Okay, let's try number 1. We're going to identify again A, B, and C. Oops. Okay, and we'll just remember that the A is the number in the very, very front, A. There is no number there, so it's an imaginary 1. B this time is going to have this negative 8. That's B. And C is going to have a negative 20. So I'll start out by writing x equals negative b plus and minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You guys had that right at the top of your notes. And then I can plug in x equals negative b is negative 8. So I'm going to plug it in as negative, and then I have negative 8 goes inside. Plus and minus the square root of negative 8 squared. Make sure that negative 8 goes inside the parentheses. Squared minus 4 times a is 1. C is negative 20. The whole thing is divided by 2 times 1, 2a. My next step is to simplify what's underneath here. So I'm going to write this as x equals negative negative 8. Those two negatives cancel each other out, so it's just positive 8 plus and minus. I'll type in here negative 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 20 is, sorry you can't see that, 144. Square root of 144 all over 2 times 1 is 2. The square root of 144, when you type that in, is 12. So I end up with x equals 8 plus and minus 12 divided by 2. And on that very last step here, I split it up into x equals 8 plus 12 over 2 and x equals 8 minus 12 over 2. 8 plus 12 is 20. Divided by 2 is 10. That's one answer. 8 minus 12 is negative 4. Divided by 2 is negative 2. You get these two answers, 10 and negative 2. Cool. Like I said, it's a little bit of work, but it's not necessarily hard. It just takes a little bit of time.